Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys my impressions of The Last of Us DLC Left Behind. PlayStation Portugal was kind enough to send me a code so that I could check out this DLC and tell you guys my opinions on it. Now, you guys might be wondering why exactly am I doing this on camera as opposed to just showing you guys a bunch of gameplay as I usually tend to do, and basically there was a set of restrictions in terms of what I could actually do for the particular review or impressions on this DLC that was somewhat restricting, and I am somewhat restricted to how many minutes of gameplay I can actually show you guys. This is kind of imposed by Naughty Dog, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it. But it is kind of weird though, because the game has been released, so at this point there's probably 1,000,001 people doing Let's Plays of it, but being someone who does deal with publishers and all that stuff, I am bound to respect those particular agreements. Now, those of you that are thinking, oh man, they've got all these restrictions in place, that probably means the DLC isn't that great. I would have to tell you that that is not the case. I actually really enjoyed playing through the DLC. The main thing that I would kind of complain a little bit about the DLC, although I'm not entirely sure if it would be a complaint or not, because here's the thing, the DLC is fairly short. And I guess that's kind of the reason why these restrictions are in place, because if I was to make like one of my usual videos of 30, 40 minutes, that would be a really long chunk of the game, because the DLC took me 2 hours and 37 minutes to go through. Now, you guys know the way that I play games, I usually go after all the collectibles and all the stuff that I can find and pick up and get all the items and, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's what I did, and that took me 2 hours and 37 minutes. If you were actually to just go for story progression and not care about exploring and taking in the atmosphere, you could probably do it in under 2 hours. But the point of this DLC is not really to rush through it. This is a DLC that explores two aspects of Ellie's story. One of those aspects is before The Last of Us ever takes place, which is actually the story of Ellie and her friend Riley. And this is actually alluded to as you play The Last of Us for the very first time. Ellie will, in dialogue or in cutscenes or whatever she will have with Joel, she will allude to this particular story. So those of you who have played The Last of Us will know kind of what this story is about. It goes into really, really great detail of the story of Ellie and Riley. And not only that, but it also jumps back and forth between that story and the story after something that happened in The Last of Us, where Ellie had to kind of do something for Joel. I don't want to get into too many details, but yeah, there's a section in The Last of Us, those of you who watch my playthrough know, there's a section where Ellie has to do a whole bunch of stuff for Joel, and the player is actually in control of Ellie during that particular section of the game. And this title also delves a little bit more in depth into that section as to all the things that Ellie had to do besides the stuff that was actually shown in the storyline itself. Now, you guys might be wondering, so is this essential, like, for me to fully understand the story of The Last of Us? No. The Last of Us is a complete game, and this DLC just adds more stuff that you can go in and explore. Like, if you really, really enjoyed The Last of Us, then you will most likely really enjoy this DLC. Something that was really, really that I really, really enjoyed is how I just like got back into the world of The Last of Us, because it's been a while since I played The Last of Us. It's pretty much since the last time that I did a playthrough video for The Last of Us. That was the last time I played The Last of Us, because the multiplayer didn't really appeal to me that much. I was more about the whole single player story of that particular game. So when I got into the DLC and I started kind of soaking in that environment again, I was like, yeah, this is why I really enjoy this title. So the thing about Left Behind is, just like the original Last of Us, it brings you a lot of those things that you can only discover if you actually go off the beaten path, and you will find audio recorders. It's going to tell you a little story about another group, you know, kind of the same way how in Last of Us you would go into a house and you would find pictures, or you would find messages that would kind of tell you how a family was living there and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that in this DLC as well. You know, the side stories, kind of bringing the world itself to life, which always was one of the strong points, in my opinion, of the original Last of Us, is how real the world actually felt because of the incredible amount of detail that Naughty Dog has placed into creating that world, and just the sheer amount of information that's there for you to collect. And if you pay close attention to the small details, you can understand what's happening behind the scenes because you are looking, you know, at notes and figuring out like the story of the people who were there before everything went bad, you know. And there is some of that in this DLC as well, as it jumps back and forth between the two stories of Ellie and Riley and Ellie and Joel. And most of the action where you actually get to, you know, engage in combat and stuff like that is usually on the side of the Ellie and Joel story. The Ellie and Riley story is more about exploration and, you know, just understanding what the world was like back then. And this might be a bit of a turnoff for some people, but I've always thought that one of the strongest points in The Last of Us was the story itself, not necessarily its combat, even though it's got still that solid combat. You're going to be using pistols and bows and bricks and that kind of stuff. You still have the crafting that allows you to craft Molotov cocktails, bombs, all that stuff, even though I haven't used that too much, but you can. I've used it somewhat to great effect, usually when I did it. And yeah, that is pretty much the DLC in a nutshell. Now, once again, like I said, is this essential to understanding the story of The Last of Us? I wouldn't necessarily say so. It is not essential. It's just a bonus. It is kind of like a director's cut of The Last of Us because it's got more information about the story of Ellie, and it's got more information about what Ellie had to do and what happened to Ellie back in those days. And it's kind of weird because I really don't want to say too much about that because I'm kind of scared of spoiling. But there are some pretty interesting moments there. There's also a feature, if you do get the DLC, that's going to ask you to connect to Facebook. And if you guys are like me, I don't usually like stuff connecting to Facebook. I can already tell you it's pretty harmless, and it does add a little bit to the experience. So yeah, it is a worthwhile piece of DLC. It definitely brings you more of that Last of Us universe. If you just can't get enough, then you definitely should go ahead and check it out. If, however, you feel like you're kind of done with The Last of Us and you don't really feel like the DLC is going to do much for you, because this is, once again, like I said, this DLC does almost nothing for Joel. This is just all about Ellie. This DLC is just completely focused around Ellie, and portions of it focus around Ellie and Riley, her friend. There are some things that really I was like, whoa, I guess I kind of didn't expect that. And yeah, there are some moments like that, but that's really all I can say about it. I mean, in terms of graphics, the game still looks amazing. The world is still incredibly detailed. The portions that you go through on the DLC, the animations still look great. What else can I say? The gameplay remains the same gameplay that you get in The Last of Us, although, as I've mentioned, when you're doing the Ellie and Riley story, you get a lot more of exploration and just kind of stuff that is optional to do. Like, for instance, there's a portion in that particular story where Ellie gets on a merry-go-round. If you choose to, you don't have to do the merry-go-round scene. Just like there's another portion where they're fooling around with masks and stuff. And again, that stuff is pretty much optional. You can just go ahead and go straight on through the story, but doing those scenes reveals a lot more about the interaction of Ellie and her friend, and, you know, just that portion of that relationship in general. Either way, as I've said, DLC is pretty solid if you've enjoyed The Last of Us. The main complaint that I would have, and again, I'm not sure if that is a complaint or not, is the fact that it is somewhat short, probably under 2 hours if you just rush through the story. But the thing is, like, is that a negative thing necessarily? Because I feel that sometimes a lot of games, like, overstay their welcome. Like, for instance, I usually give out the example of Vanquish. Now, Vanquish is a game that I probably went through in like 6 hours or something. And did I regret it? No, I thought it was a great experience. So I never really regretted the price I paid for Vanquish, despite I only got like 6 hours out of it. And I believe that some people have said that they've gone through it in like 4 hours. And I was like, is that a negative thing? Depends on how satisfied you were while you were doing it. Because just padding things on to get a ton of side quests, Kingdoms of Amalur style, is also not necessarily the best way to go about things. Anyways, that is pretty much it. Let me know what you think about the DLC in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Will Ellie ever be as funny as me? Oh, please. I'm like 10 times funnier than you. He said, not in this existence. Hey, it wasn't me. Skeleseer said it. Well, Skeleseer can suck my dick. Nice, Ellie. Thanks. You're welcome.